Well, we're hearing a lot of conversation today about Project 2025. It's the nearly 900-page plan put together by the Heritage Foundation and some other conservative groups, outlining a sweeping overhaul to federal government and some very specific policy changes about issues like abortion, immigration, and more. That is, if Donald Trump is elected.
This week, the project has become a focus for both Democrats and Republicans. Joining us now to give us some more insight on that is Jim Henson. He's the director of the Texas Politics Project at UT. Thanks for being here, Jim.
Great to be back.
So I understand that you have read all 900 pages of this project, right?
Well, close.
Yeah, no, it's a thick read for sure,
Yes.
covering many, many details. But the fact of the matter is that this has been in the works for many years. But boy, is it making the headlines right now. Why is that, and who's behind that?
Well, I mean, I think there's two conflicting dynamics going on here. One is that the Project 2025 authors and their institutional authors are promoting their work, and that's what it's about. It's about trying to influence what a potential Trump administration would do. On the other hand, Democrats also see it as a good argument, a good way of mobilizing their own voters by saying, essentially, see, look what these guys are up to. They want to strengthen the executive branch. They want more draconian laws on abortion. They want more draconian border and immigration policies. And so it's a way for both the authors to promote their agenda, but also for Democrats to call attention to what they see as an extremist document that is likely to also mobilize their voters.
We've really seen Donald Trump and his campaign try to distance themselves from Project 2025. But talk to us about the actual policies, the actual issues in the project. Where does Donald Trump and his campaign points differ from the project? Are there differences, and where are they in alignment?
Well, that's an interesting question because, on one hand, there are some elements of the Project 2025 document, particularly as regards abortion, that Trump himself and his campaign have been trying to move away from, particularly a national ban on abortion, and putting those kinds of issues front and center. If you look at the proposed Republican platform that by all reports Donald Trump actually had a hand in writing, some of those elements are not in that platform at all. Again, particularly abortion. I think you also have the part of Project 2025 that is aimed at really strengthening the executive branch. That issue has been in the news because of the recent Supreme Court decision expanding presidential immunity. I think that right now, as the Trump campaign looks at a close election in swing states, they are trying, like a classic campaign would, to moderate their positions in some of these areas. So despite the fact that former Trump campaign and administration officials have been very involved in the production of this document, they're putting some distance between themselves and the document. Whether people actually believe that or not, I think, is another question.
It really is interesting because here is a case where you actually have Republicans and Democrats both who are distancing themselves from it, using it to their own advantage. So the Heritage Foundation has sent recommendations to presidents in the past and has also consulted with former President Trump when he was in office. How influential do you think that they were when he was the president?
Yeah, but look, I think groups like the Heritage Foundation on the judicial and legal side, the Federalist Society, there are these think tanks, kind of intellectual production groups, if you will, that have become closely aligned with the parties and with the presidential administrations. Now, when you're president and when you've been elected, you want to draw on those people, but you don't want to just hand the steering wheel over to them. So, they are useful in terms of doing some of the work, if you will, for presidential administrations. We see that in Texas at the gubernatorial level and even in the legislature where, the parties, the system has evolved in a way in which these think tanks and kind of ideologically driven organizations have become powerful drivers adjacent to the political parties and adjacent to politicians, and I think we're seeing that now.
I want to circle back a few of the issues you just discussed. Talk to us about Texas voters. Some of the issues we're hearing about with Project 2025, abortion, immigration, are key here for Texans in making their decision. What kind of polling are we seeing? Where are Texans leaning on those issues?
Well, I think, on immigration and border security, the frankly, kind of very hard-line positions that are articulated in the Project 2025 document are very aligned with what we see among Republican voters who overwhelmingly favor much more punitive enforcement-based measures on both the border and, frankly, for immigrants that are here in the country now, particularly if they're here without documentation. So that kind of lines up with Texas public opinion. To go back to what we said about Donald Trump's slight aversion to emphasizing abortion, the Republican Party right now is in a real, struggle internally to figure out how to reconcile very restrictive abortion policies that really outpace where most of the public is, including most Republicans. The problem is that the kind of activists in the Republican Party that embrace cultural politics around abortion are in line with the more severe positions that are taken in a document like Project 2025. I think frankly Donald Trump sees this as an electoral loser, and even though he owns the Supreme Court appointments that help create this environment with the decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, he is trying to backpedal on that, and so that is a bigger problem because Republican opinion on abortion is more divided and not frankly supportive of the kind of blanket prohibitions that seem to be the object of these more conservative groups in the state, and particularly and including the national groups that produce Project 2025.
Let's pivot just a little bit and talk about polls with the presidential race and where it stands right now. I mean, following these polls after the debate has been about as easy as nailing Jell-O to the wall. It's just they're all over the place, and asking all sorts of questions. What are you seeing? What's the trend that you're seeing after the debate?
Well, I think trend is the key word here, right? Is that there's always a lag between the time that an event happens and you can begin to accumulate enough data to talk about trends. It takes more than, one or two, the minimum you need for a trend is 3 polls, and we're still barely in that zone. I think what we're seeing is that the polling is either showing a somewhat static race overall, with Joe Biden losing some ground in the key battleground states that we're looking at. There's really only about 7 to 9 that matter ultimately as competitive races in the national election. And so they're either ambiguous or showing that Joe Biden has lost some traction nationally. And when we say lost traction, he was recovering from some bad polling around he was helped by probably the Trump convictions, but that's now over. And we're now, the way I would characterize the polling now is we're waiting to see. That is, we need more data, and we're going to get lots of it in the next couple weeks.
And every time he makes an appearance, people all have their eyes on him. He has this big press conference he's having tonight,
right?
We're a solo press conference, so we'll see how that turns out.
And he'll be in Austin on Monday.
That's right. That's right.
I know we're bracing here in Austin for many more news headlines to come. And Jim, I know this will not be the last time we have you on before November, so thank you very much for sharing your insights.
It's great to be back. Enjoy talking to you all.
Yeah, we'll be right back.